The rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the windows of the old, creaky house perched on the edge of the cliff. The wind howled like a wounded animal, rattling the shutters and sending chills down the spines of anyone brave enough to venture outside. Inside, the air was thick with tension, the kind that could cut through steel. The dim light from the chandelier cast long shadows on the walls, making the already ominous atmosphere even more suffocating. The center of this storm was Clara, a woman in her late 50s, with sharp features and an even sharper tongue. She sat regally in her high-backed chair, her eyes narrowed as she surveyed the room. Her daughter-in-law, Emily, stood nervously by the fireplace, clutching a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Emily was the epitome of grace and kindness, but even she couldn't escape the wrath of Clara's constant criticism. "You call this tea?" Clara sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "It's barely warm. How do you expect me to drink this?" Emily forced a smile, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry, Clara. I'll make you another cup." "Don't bother," Clara snapped, waving her hand dismissively. "You've already ruined my evening." Emily's husband, Daniel, entered the room, his face a mask of frustration. He had grown up under Clara's iron fist, and even now, as a successful businessman, he couldn't seem to break free from her control. "Mother, please," he said, his voice strained. "Emily is doing her best. Can't you just be nice for once?" Clara's eyes flashed with anger. "Nice? Nice. I'll have you know that I've sacrificed everything for this family. And this is the thanks I get? A daughter-in-law who can't even make a proper cup of tea." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mother, you're being unreasonable. Emily has been nothing but kind to you. Why can't you see that?" Clara stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the wooden floor. "I don't have to listen to this," she spat. "I'm going to my room. Don't disturb me." As Clara stormed out of the room, Emily let out a shaky breath. "Daniel, I don't know how much more of this I can take," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel pulled her into a tight embrace, his heart aching for her. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I'll talk to her. I promise." But deep down, Daniel knew that talking to Clara was like trying to reason with a hurricane. She was a force of nature, unpredictable and destructive. And yet, there was a part of him that still hoped she could change, that somewhere beneath all that bitterness and anger, there was a woman who could love and be loved. Little did they know, a storm was brewing, one that would change everything. A storm that would force Clara to confront her past, her choices, and the person she had become. A storm that would bring her face to face with someone she never expected to see again. And when that storm hit, nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy with moisture. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting a pale light over the landscape. Clara sat in the dining room, sipping her tea in silence. Emily and Daniel were nowhere to be seen, and for that, Clara was grateful. She needed time to think, to plan her next move, but her solitude was short-lived. A knock at the door shattered the silence, echoing through the house like a gunshot. Clara frowned, setting her cup down with a clatter. Who could be visiting at this hour? She wasn't expecting anyone. She made her way to the front door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. When she opened the door, she was met with a sight that made her blood run cold. Standing on the porch was a man in his late 60s, with silver hair and piercing blue eyes. He was dressed in a simple suit, but there was an air of authority about him that made Clara's stomach churn. She recognized him instantly, even after all these years. "Hello, Clara," he said, his voice calm but firm. "It's been a long time." Clara's heart raced, her mind spinning with 1,000 questions. What was he doing here? Why now? She hadn't seen him in over 30 years, not since the day he walked out of her life without a word. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to sound strong. The man smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "I think it's time we talked, don't you?" Clara's mind raced. She wanted to slam the door in his face, to pretend he didn't exist. But something in his eyes stopped her. There was a sadness there, a pain that mirrored her own. And against her better judgment, she stepped aside, allowing him to enter. As he walked past her, Clara couldn't help but notice the way he carried himself, with a quiet confidence that she had once admired. But that was a lifetime ago, and she wasn't the same woman she had been back then. Neither was he. They sat in the living room, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. Finally, the man spoke. "I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness, Clara. But I need you to hear me out. Clara crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. You have 5 minutes. The man nodded, taking a deep breath. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, Clara. But the biggest one was leaving you. I was young and foolish, and I thought I could run away from my problems. But I've carried the weight of that decision with me every day since. Clara's heart ached, but she refused to let it show. You think a few words can make up for 30 years of silence? She spat. You think you can just waltz back into my life and expect me to welcome you with open arms? The man shook his head. No, Clara. I don't expect anything from you. But I needed to see you to tell you the truth. And to ask for your help. Clara's eyes widened in surprise. My help? What could you possibly need from me? The man hesitated, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. I'm dying, Clara. I don't have much time left. And there's something I need to do before I go. Something that involves you. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to lash out at him for daring to come back into her life after all these years. But there was a part of her, a small, fragile part, that wanted to hear him out. That wanted to know what could be so important that he would come to her after all this time. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I need you to come with me. There's someone you need to meet. Someone who could change everything. Clara's mind raced. Who could he be talking about? And why now? She wanted to refuse, to tell him to leave and never come back. But something in his eyes and the way he spoke made her hesitate. I'll think about it, she said finally, her voice firm. But I'm not making any promises. The man nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. That's all I can ask for. As he stood to leave, Clara felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside her. Anger, sadness, curiosity, and something else she couldn't quite place. She watched as he walked out the door, his figure disappearing into the misty morning. And as she closed the door behind him, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't even imagine. The next few days passed in a blur. Clara couldn't stop thinking about the man's words, about the mysterious person he wanted her to meet. She tried to push it out of her mind, to focus on her usual routines, but it was no use. The curiosity was eating away at her, gnawing at the edges of her thoughts. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She called Daniel and Emily into the living room, her face set in a determined expression. I'm going away for a few days, she announced, her voice firm. I don't know when I'll be back. Daniel and Emily exchanged worried glances. Mother, are you sure that's a good idea? Daniel asked. You've been so unpredictable lately. Clara's eyes flashed with anger. I don't need your permission, Daniel. I'm your mother, not a child. Emily stepped forward, her voice gentle. Clara, we're just worried about you. Where are you going? Who are you meeting? Clara hesitated, her resolve wavering for a moment. But then she straightened her shoulders, her expression hardening. That's none of your concern. I'll be back when I'm back. And with that, she turned on her heel and walked out the door, leaving Daniel and Emily staring after her in stunned silence. Clara's journey took her to a small, secluded town nestled in the mountains. The air was crisp and clean, a stark contrast to the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of her home. As she stepped off the bus, she felt a strange sense of anticipation, as if she were on the brink of something monumental. The man was waiting for her at the bus stop, his expression unreadable. I'm glad you came, he said simply. Clara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. Let's get this over with. They walked in silence through the town, the streets lined with quaint shops and cozy cottages. Finally, they arrived at a small, unassuming house at the edge of town. The man stopped at the gate, turning to face Clara. Before we go in, there's something you need to know, he said, his voice serious. The person inside, they've been through a lot. They've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Please, be gentle with them. Clara's curiosity was piqued, but she nodded, her heart racing. I'll do my best. The man opened the gate, leading Clara up the path to the front door. He knocked softly, and a moment later, the door creaked open. Standing in the doorway was a young woman, no more than 25 years old. She had Clara's eyes, her nose, her smile. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she realized the truth. This was her granddaughter. The room was silent, save for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Clara stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes locked on the young woman before her. She felt as if the ground had been ripped out from under her, leaving her suspended in a void of shock and disbelief. The young woman, whose name was Lily, looked equally stunned. She had known this moment was coming, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of standing face to face with the grandmother she had never met. The man who had brought Clara here, her long-lost love, stepped forward, breaking the tense silence. "Clara, this is Lily, your granddaughter." Clara's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. How is this possible?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The man sighed, his expression heavy with regret. "After I left you, Clara, I met someone else. We had a son, but things didn't work out between us. I raised him on my own, but I never told him about you. I thought it was better that way. But then he passed away, leaving Lily behind. She's been searching for you, Clara. She wanted to know where she came from, who her family was." Clara's heart ached as she looked at Lily, seeing so much of herself in the young woman's face. She had spent so many years building walls around her heart, shutting out anyone who dared to get close. But now, faced with the granddaughter she never knew she had, those walls began to crumble. I don't know what to say," Clara admitted, her voice trembling. I never imagined." Lily stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "I know this is a lot to take in," she said softly, "but I've wanted to meet you for so long. I've heard so many stories about you, about the woman you used to be. I just wanted to know you." Clara felt tears welling up in her eyes, something she hadn't allowed herself to do in years. She reached out, hesitantly, and took Lily's hand in hers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry I didn't know." Lily's eyes filled with tears as well, and she pulled Clara into a tight embrace. "It's okay," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "You're here now. That's all that matters." As they held each other, Clara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in decades. The walls she had built around her heart were gone, replaced by a love she had long thought lost. And in that moment, she knew that her life would never be the same. But as the days passed and Clara got to know Lily, she began to realize that there was more to this reunion than meets the eye. Lily had a secret, one that would change everything once again. And as Clara delved deeper into the truth, she would be forced to confront her past in ways she never imagined. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Clara. She spent hours talking with Lily, learning about her life, her dreams, and her struggles. It was as if a missing piece of her soul had been restored, and she felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't known in years. But as they grew closer, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Lily wasn't telling her. There were moments when Lily would hesitate, her eyes clouded with something unspoken. Clara tried to brush it off, telling herself that it was just the natural awkwardness of getting to know someone after so many years apart. But deep down, she knew there was more to it. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Clara decided to confront her. "Lily, there's something you're not telling me, isn't there?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. Lily's eyes widened in surprise, and she looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. I don't know what you mean," she stammered. Clara reached out, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder. "It's okay, Lily. Whatever it is, you can tell me. I'm here for you." Lily took a deep breath, her eyes filling with tears. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling. "Something I've been keeping from you." Clara's heart raced, but she kept her expression calm. "Go on." Lily hesitated, then finally spoke. "I'm sick, Clara. I have a rare disease, and I don't have much time left." Clara felt as if the world had stopped spinning. Her breath caught in her throat, and she stared at Lily in shock. What are you saying?" she whispered. Lily's tears spilled over, and she reached out to take Clara's hand. "I didn't want to tell you at first. I didn't want you to feel obligated to stay or to pity me. But I couldn't keep it from you any longer. I wanted you to know the truth." Clara's mind raced, trying to process the information. Her granddaughter, the person she had just found, was dying. The thought was unbearable, and she felt a surge of anger and despair. "No," she said firmly. "No, there has to be something we can do. There has to be a way to save you." Lily shook her head, her expression filled with sadness. "I've been to every doctor, tried every treatment. There's nothing more they can do. I've made my peace with it, Clara. But I wanted to spend whatever time I have left with you. I wanted to know you, to have you in my life, even if it's just for a little while." Clara felt tears streaming down her face, and she pulled Lily into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you sooner." Lily held her tightly, her own tears soaking into Clara's shoulder. It's okay, she said softly. You're here now. That's all that matters. As they held each other, Clara felt a surge of determination. She had lost so much time, so many years that she could never get back. But she wasn't going to lose Lily. Not now, not when she had just found her. We'll make the most of the time we have, Clara said firmly, pulling back to look Lily in the eye. We'll do everything we've ever wanted to do. We'll make memories that will last a lifetime. Lily smiled through her tears, her heart filled with gratitude. Thank you, Clara. That means more to me than you'll ever know. And so, Clara and Lily embarked on a journey together, determined to make the most of the time they had left. They traveled, they laughed, they cried, and they shared stories that would stay with them forever. But as the days passed, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to Lily's story, something that would change everything once again. The days turned into weeks, and Clara and Lily grew closer than ever. They spent every moment together, cherishing the time they had. But as Lily's condition worsened, Clara knew that their time was running out. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Lily turned to Clara, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. Clara, there's something I need to ask you, she said softly. Clara's heart ached, but she nodded. Anything, Lily. What is it? Lily took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. I want you to promise me something. When I'm gone, I want you to live your life to the fullest. Don't shut yourself off from the world like you did before. You have so much love to give, Clara. Don't let it go to waste. Clara felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she nodded firmly. I promise, Lily. I'll do my best. Lily smiled, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Clara. That's all I can ask for. As the days passed, Lily's condition continued to deteriorate. Clara stayed by her side, holding her hand and whispering words of comfort. And then, one quiet morning, Lily took her final breath, her hand slipping from Clara's grasp. Clara felt as if her heart had been ripped out of her chest. She had known this moment was coming, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of losing Lily. She sat by her granddaughter's side, tears streaming down her face as she whispered her final goodbye. I love you, Lily, she said softly. I'll never forget you. As Clara sat there, grieving the loss of the granddaughter she had just found, she realized that Lily had given her a gift far greater than she could have ever imagined. She had shown Clara that it was never too late to love, to forgive, and to live. And as Clara left the small town, her heart heavy with loss but filled with a newfound sense of purpose, she knew that her life would never be the same. She had been given a second chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. But as she returned home, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to Lily's story, something that would change everything once again. And as she delved deeper into the truth, she would be forced to confront her past in ways she never imagined. Clara returned home, her heart heavy with the weight of Lily's passing. The house felt emptier than ever, the silence a constant reminder of the loss she had endured. But amidst the grief, Clara found herself clinging to the promise she had made to Lily, to live her life to the fullest. As she began to sort through Lily's belongings, she stumbled upon a small, weathered box tucked away in the corner of the room. It was unassuming, but something about it caught her attention. She opened it carefully, her hands trembling as she pulled out a stack of letters tied together with a faded ribbon. The top letter was addressed to her. Clara's heart raced as she unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. It was from Lily. Dear Clara, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I wanted to leave you with something that might help you understand why I came into your life when I did. There's so much I wish I could have told you in person, but I hope this letter will suffice. You see, Clara, I didn't just come to find you because I wanted to know my family. I came because I needed to tell you the truth about your past, about the choices you made, and the person you became. I know you spent years building walls around your heart, shutting out anyone who dared to get close. But I also know that deep down, you're still the same woman who once loved so fiercely, so completely. There's something you need to know, Clara. Something that will change everything. But I can't tell you in this letter. You'll have to find it for yourself. Look for the key. It's hidden in the place where your heart once belonged. I love you, Clara. And I'll always be with you, in your heart and in your memories. Forever yours, Lily. Clara's hands trembled as she finished reading the letter. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of Lily's words. What key? What was she talking about? And what truth was she referring to? Determined to uncover the mystery, Clara began to search the house, her heart pounding with each step. She retraced her steps, thinking back to the places that held the most meaning to her. And then it hit her, the old oak tree in the backyard, the one she had planted with her first love so many years ago. She rushed outside, the cool night air biting at her skin. The tree stood tall and majestic, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. Clara knelt at its base, her hands digging into the soft earth. And then she found it, a small, rusted key buried beneath the roots. Her heart raced as she held the key in her hand, her mind spinning with possibilities. What could it unlock? And what secrets did it hold? With a sense of urgency, Clara returned to the house, her eyes scanning the room for anything that might match the key. And then she saw it, an old, dusty chest tucked away in the attic, its lock rusted but still intact. Her hands trembled as she inserted the key, turning it slowly. The lock clicked, and the chest creaked open, revealing a stack of old photographs and letters. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she sifted through the contents, her eyes widening in shock. The photographs were of her first love, and of a child she had never known existed. And then she saw it, a letter written in her own handwriting, addressed to the man she had loved so many years ago. My dearest, I'm writing this letter with a heavy heart, knowing that you may never read it. But I need you to know the truth. I'm pregnant, and the child is yours. I don't know what to do, but I know that I can't keep this from you. I love you, and I always will.